He said that Bernay asked him, well, how would you feel if y'all don't know about that video? There's a video where Bernay was like, when Devin broke his silence, and she was like, boy, and she was like, I don't even remember asking him that question, and if I did, it was a hypothetically speaking type thing. Y'all remember that video? So she did say it, but how are you going to hypothetically speak on being with somebody who ain't even available for you to be with? That's the thing. I don't understand that. And so at some point, Bernay was just like, she wanted to rekindle. Hold up. She wanted to rekindle. What would you do if me and Tim were to rekindle what we had? And he was like, he said he'll be happy for them. But he was like, he was just saying something because he really wasn't in his right frame of mind. Like, you know, he wasn't talking about literally speaking. He was just still trying to process everything and what was going on. So Bernay asked him, well, what is your definition of rekindling? And he said, what you done did now. Basically saying that you and Tim decided that y'all wanted to be together, and he said, ain't y'all together now? That's what rekindling means, to get back together. Lord have mercy. When I tell you Akira and Devin was eating Bernay up from the stand, they was eating. I'm talking about she be slick, but the way that they came back to eat her up. And so to the point where I know with Akira and Tim, the judge had to send the jurors out because he was like, we're not going to do this editorial stuff. We're not doing all this editorial. But my thing was, Bernay was asking stupid questions, but she got sophisticated answers. Clapback answers. Do you hear me? So it was really something. They wanted to know how often did he bring the kids to the house with him, you know, to basically be with Bernay. So let's talk about the divorce situation. Devin said he didn't want no divorce. When I tell y'all, I'm gonna slow it down just a little bit more and break it down to you guys. So January was a very interesting month for Devin, Akira, Bernay, and Tim, and this is why. Bernay came up with this plan, and you cannot tell me that this was not a plan, and I need y'all to follow me very carefully when I say this, because it was most definitely a plan. Devin said that in January, Tim and Bernay had went apartment shopping. That she co-signed for Tim an apartment. So Robin was like, well, how do you know? He was like, because I was there. Not only that, Bernay tried to get a divorce from Devin in January by going online and filling out paperwork. You know when she said she illegally, you remember when she said she illegally did it? That's what she was talking about. She went online. So Devin confirmed that I didn't want no divorce. You wanted a divorce, and therefore you went online and got these papers. Then he went on to say, when I say another, it was another jaw-dropping moment. He was like, not only did you do that, but you paid for Tim and Akira's. You tried to pay for Tim and Akira's divorce. And he was like, you sent money to Tim so that Tim could file for divorce from Akira. Y'all, when I said I ain't think it could get any worse after that baby stuff, I'm just like, oh, it's just gonna be snowballing today. Because, and I'm gonna tell y'all, I was telling Caramel Love this earlier. I was like, she really based that off that text in January where Akira had told Tim that, after I think she found those videos that she just, they can just go their separate ways. And like I said, people say that all the time. They don't be really meaning it. Tim was like, that ain't what I'm not saying that that's what I want, basically. He was like, I ain't say that all that. And so I believe Bernay literally started striking at that moment because the timeline just add up for January. They had sex. Akira sent him this text message saying that. Tim responded back saying that I wasn't saying all of that as far as like divorce thing. And then he was like, so I feel like Bernay had striked at that moment. She was trying to divorce her husband and try to go ahead and get this man divorce his wife so that they can be together. And giving him the money. So she was like, how do you know that she gave him the money? He said, I was there. I said, Po Devin. Po Devin. So then Bernay cross-examined Devin. And she was like, how you know that I gave Tim the money? He said, because I was there. That's how he said it to her. And he was like, well, how you know that I was in there being intimate with Mr. Montague? He said, because I heard y'all. My thing is, like, as a juror, I would be sitting there was like, why was you even in a room? Why were you even in a room with closed in a room with somebody else's husband? Why? She a sick individual. I don't know no other way to say it. Like, when I tell you that girl is a sick individual, she's a sick individual. And
Goddess, hold on. I just want to say this real quick because the comments is off and I know everybody want to say this. You is clocking it, honey. You is doing it. The story is piping hot and it's tea just burning my mouth.
Oh, God. Y'all comments for a minute. Y'all open it for a minute. Let me take a break.
Oh, people is screaming at their phones right now.
Like, open the comments for a minute. Just for a minute.
You just gave us so much tea at one time, and I'm literally, it's spilling on my dress, it's spilling in my mouth, it's my hands is burning. I am hot.
Yeah, that is crazy. Y'all, it was literally so much worse than what we thought.
Did they ever tell you what Tim did with the money?
No, because he most definitely didn't file for no divorce. He most definitely didn't file for divorce.
He took that money and spun it.
He most definitely didn't file for divorce. Nope, he didn't do it with the laptop. That laptop, he claims that he used his refund check to get that. Tim was like full of lies today. We gonna get to that part. Y'all don't mute nobody. Block everybody. Don't mute nobody. When I tell y'all, I was sitting up here like, oh my gosh. And I was remembering like things that Bernay had been saying on, social media, especially TikTok, about, oh, he lied. They knew. Like, I'm still waiting on the truth. And I knew that she was going to use, oh, thank you. I knew that she was going to use text messages from Tim, videos from Tim that was between Tim and Akira. I knew Tim was going to supply her with that information to clap back at Bernay. When I tell y'all, I have never seen no mess like this. The way, and I'm kind of going to skip let me go through this real quick. So there was a text message where Devin had told, Devin and Akira was telling each other that they didn't deserve what had happened to them by their partner. Akira told Devin, to get him a woman of God and find his real. Y'all, when I tell y'all, this was March 28th of 2024. Like, the message between them of them like really checking in on each other, because she was like, why did you text? It would be like, hey Akira, or hey sis, I'm just checking in, to see how you doing. It was like, and he was like, and so Robin was like, well, why did you do that? Why did you feel the need to sit there? He was like, because if I'm sitting here feeling the way that I feel, I know that she's over there feeling the same way. Y'all turn off the comments. Whew. So she wouldn't talk when Devin kept telling her, kept saying that he was there. She had no argument. She had no argument about Tim being there. No argument about them doing the do. She couldn't really say nothing. It was just, she was really, how Cameron was like, she was really looking STUPID. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I talked about that already. So there was a part of their conversation where Devin had, when he found out that Akira was suing Bernay, he wanted to know, would he be tied up in any of it? And she was just like, no. And he was like, Akira said people were sending her things and that it's embarrassing, but God would handle those things. And so he was like, it's crazy how his family came to support him like that, but they didn't provide no support to her. And she was telling Devin that, that you don't have to deal with Bernay anymore. And the reason being because they didn't have any children. And she was like, this is different for me because I got to deal with them for the rest of my kids' life. She didn't say the rest of her life. She said the rest of my kids' life, which was made things more complex. And then Devin says to her, I don't think anyone know how serious it is. A lot of people don't make it out of these situations alive. Baby, that got everybody. When I tell y'all that choked up the audience, that choked us up. When he was like, people don't realize how serious this is, because they was just on social media just doing the most, which we seen Tim and Bernay, especially Bernay, just doing the most. And he was just saying people don't realize how serious of a situation this is and that people don't come out alive. And can you imagine wanting to hurt other people, wanting to hurt yourself, just up and down with emotions? Devin described Bernay as a bully who isn't happy with herself. That's how he described her. He was like, just encouraging Akira, not to allow Bernay to see her break and sweat, and stuff like that, because she ain't nobody but she ain't nobody but a bully who isn't happy within herself. Then Devin said that he was intimate with his wife the day that Tim came over, and she turned around and was intimate with Tim. And she went in the bedroom with Tim and never came out. Spent the rest of the night in there with him. Bernay Study was asking him, why you didn't say nothing to me? Why you this? Why you that? He said, like I said, silence over violence. She asked something and he was like, I don't know, you want me to rephrase that? You want me to rephrase that? What's your definition of rekindling? He said, getting back together like you are in a relationship now. That's exactly what he said. Um, he asked her about why she didn't have a conversation with him January the 17th of 2020. I think they had a conversation January the 17th of 2024. And she asked him, why wasn't your feelings addressed with her? And he said, because it will always be turned back on me. She asked him, she said, is your testimony? She asked him, are you suing Mr. Montague? And he said, yes. And she said, well, don't you think your testimony is a little biased? He said, no. So then Akira mama take the stand. Ooh, y'all got so many notes from today. Akira mama takes the stand, and Robin asked her, who was Akira. She stated who Akira was. She asked her to tell the dynamics of Akira's and Tim's relationship. She said that they had a good marriage. She stated that, and she got very teary-eyed. Well, she started crying because she was like, Tim came to her and asked for her hand in marriage. And she was like, y'all too young. You know what I'm saying? Because she was like, Tim had to been like 20. Akira had to been like 18 or 19. But she was like, they were too young. And so he was like, he told her, Akira is my best friend. And who else to build this struggle with other than her? So she said, despite my family not agreeing and wanting, Tim and Akira to be married, they still supported them inside of their decision. So the mama was like, the only thing I want you to do is keep your word and do right by my daughter. That's all I want you to do. And she said that she told them that as long as they do that, she will always happen. And so she will always make sure that they were good. So Robin said, did you keep your word? She said, I did. She said that she had just graduated, I think, law school. And she had to do something like off in Maryland. And she ended up having to be down there for like a year to work or whatever. It was like two things. I can't remember. But she was like, she left Tim and Akira in her home to live. And while they were there, she took care of all the bills because Tim was in school and Kira wasn't making enough money, but she took care of all the bills. She said she left them credit cards for emergency purposes. And she said, and they used it and they maxed it because it was always an emergency. But hey, I was doing whatever I needed to do to help them inside of their marriage and make things a little bit more, easier for them as much as I could. She talked about how Tim ended up wanting to do something special for Akira. And she wasn't lying because Tim got on the stand after her and basically tried to act like Akira didn't mean SHIT to him. Do you hear me? I don't know if y'all can tap the screen while I'm here, but it's 20,000 people on the live. Let's tap. In July of 2023, y'all follow me with these dates. In July of 2023, Tim came to Akira's mom and said that he wanted to surprise her for her 25th birthday, 2023. If y'all don't know, Akira's birthday is August of 2023. So I think it was, June or July. But anyway, she was like, on July 16th of 2023, there was text messages between Akira's mom and Tim, where, he wanted to, do something, special for her. So Akira had told, her mom that, she didn't really want to do nothing big for her birthday. If she did anything, she wanted it to be small. So they knew then that they needed to do something a little bit different. But y'all, I'm finna tell y'all, because this is where it's finna get real interesting at. So she was like, okay, so they were gonna do just close friends and family. They did a guest list. The plan was to do a surprise birthday dinner for Akira at this specific location, and there was going to be only a certain amount of people there. Y'all, when the mama, they pulled up the text messages. Y'all, we seeing it at 4K. They done pulled up the mama text message between Tim and the mama. They had the date planned, the place, the communication between them. He was talking about how Akira deserved it. They had the guest list. Y'all, it was a girl named Akira who the mama said was Akira's best friend since she was little. And I'm finna say this before I get to what I'm about to say. So that you all will understand how the mama was saying it to us. She said, my daughter do not bring any and everybody around her family. She said, and to give you an example, she said Akira was like in grade school, and she had 3 friends that had came over to stay the night with her. 2 of her friends was talking about how cute her brother was. She told them, y'all can't come back to my house. And she said, and you know what? They never came back. She said the only person that ever came back was her friend Akira. So y'all, on the guest list was her friend Akira. Number 1. Number 2 was Bernay's name. It was Akira, Bernay, and then the list went on. Yeah. Bernay was number 2 on the list, on the guest list. It was written for us. It was out there. It was black and white. Do y'all hear me? It was black and white. And I mean, it was like the text message that, how you do like in a note, and it's like in a form of a picture, and you attach it to the message. Ain't no altering that. Why she wanted to be talking about messages be altered, and Bernay was number 2. And then she said Bernay didn't even show up. She said Bernay, in the interrogatory, it asked, was Bernay at Akira's mama's house for Christmas? Bernay said several times, every time they asked that question, she kept saying no. This woman say Bernay, she said that she didn't meet Bernay until 2023. Right? She met her in 2023. Even though she had heard about her, she never met her. You know what I'm saying? She knew about Bernay. And that's why she talked about, Akira, and when Akira brought her around the family. Even though she had been there in Akira's life, the mama never met Bernay formally until Bernay came to her house. And she said when she came to my house, she was like, Devin was in my doorway, and his back was leaned up against the wall. I'm talking about very detailed. And she was like, Bernay was smushed up against Devin. And she was like, her mama was like, girl, you standing up there like somebody wants your man. And she said they all bust out the laughing. And that's when Bernay came over and sat by her. And she said when she sat by her, she had these nails. She said these long nails. And it was Hello Kitty on there. And she said Bernay was just talking to her about the charms. But Bernay act like she wasn't at the lady house. And then she was like, the other time she was around Bernay was at a basketball game, and she was like, during this time, y'all got to remember the basketball game was February the 6th. Bernay was at that basketball game, the baby's basketball game. Y'all remember February 6th, 2024? Bernay was at the baby's basketball game. Akira mama was at the baby basketball game. Tim and Bernay. So she was like, they was at the basketball game, and she was like, she remember seeing comments on TikTok, because mama was like, well, her family was sending her stuff. And so in the comments, she was like, somebody gonna say, Bernay, is that your man, or something to that effect? And she said, Bernay, they said, is this your man? And she said, she brushed it off like, that ain't my man. You know, she brushed it off. She said, Bernay, they in the comments saying that Tim, you know, basically Tim is your man. And she was like, she brushed it off, and she was just like, no, that ain't none of her man. Don't pay no attention. She said, oh, I get the messages all the time. Like, you know, she just be getting crazy stuff like that. Don't pay no attention. Well, they got into a heated conversation on February 6th. That's why Bernay was horsing that video when she came back and said, after she said she was going to Wilson, this is the day that Akira found out about them, some stuff. So I think it was like videos or yeah. Okay. So hold on, y'all. I got to make sure that I got it right. They got into an argument, and it was alleged that the police had to be called. Akira missed her son's basketball game because she said she was trying to figure out what his daddy was doing with her friend, trying to get an understanding. The grandmama said she stayed inside with the daughter and also to watch the baby play. So Tim stayed in Kira's mama's house until he went off to college and was still in there. Tim seemed to got a little emotional when she was speaking. He didn't do all that. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't doing all that. She also stated that Imani lived at the house with Tim and Akira. She stated that Tim only paid $90 for outfits, and 2 of the outfits were too little because the kids had grown. She stated that I think like in the custody hearing with Akira in their case, that Akira identifies her as the co-parent because she's the one that does everything for the kids, whatever they need. She said the baby had to have a dental procedure that was $1,400. She paid for it. Anything that the kids need, she paid for it. Any and everything that the kids need, she paid for it. She stated that she rearranged her whole work schedule to make sure that, Akira had the proper help when it came to the children. She stated that she said, I'm an attorney and I don't see my clients after 2:30. After 2:30 is a wrap because she said I have to go pick up my son, my grandson, and my granddaughter for my daughter. So mama whole life has been awesome because Timmy want to play, over there in some BV vagina. So time he had when she had her monthly, Tim had did like a little care pack for her, tampons, pads, and everything, putting it off, together as a little gift for her, just to make her okay. So they asked the mama, the mama, when did things started to shift? And she was like, when all this stuff started happening with them, with Bernay, Tim, and she was like, that's when they ran into Akira And Akira was looking like she was looking. If y'all don't know, Akira stated that during this time she had a lot of piercing in her face, like 8 to 10 piercing. She said one of her coping thing is tattoos and piercing. And how I took that, if from a person who has worked as a therapist and a person who has worked with people who self, mutilate, like, you have to understand that those are piercing pain, right? And tattoos pain. To get those many piercing can be like, it's, and I felt like in that moment with her coping, just wanted to feel something other than what she was feeling. That's how I correlated that and took that. Usually people who are cutters will they'll do that to feel something other than what they're feeling internally. So they'll start self-mutilating externally. She wasn't cutting herself, but she did have all these piercings. And when her grandma asked her, was she okay? She was like, yeah, she was like, bullshit. So basically she had told her mama that, Bernay was there and she was uncomfortable and, Bernay wouldn't leave. So she was like, her mama was like, well, I'm gonna come over. And she was like, no, you don't come over. I got it. I'm gonna handle it. And so her mama said, well, her mom and her grandma said, you have till Saturday to handle it. So her mama said, I did what any other mother would do, step back and allow my daughter to handle her own situation. Bernay crossed examined Akira's mom and asked her, what make you happy?